Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with JcrOffroad and Victory 4x4. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how to assemble and install our off-grid fridge slide in the back of our 2022 Ford Bronco. So to start things off, I do want to point out that in this video, we're going to be installing this slide in the back of our Bronco here on the JCR Bronco floor. However, the slide assembly and installation is going to be pretty much exactly the same regardless of what vehicle you're working on, and the only differences will come on the actual floor panels like you see here. Now with that being said, we'll start off by installing the provided nut tabs to the bottom side of our floor panel here. So these are going to line up with this innermost set of mounting holes that you see here, and then you're going to be lining up the pre-installed nut with the corresponding hole just to the outside of those. So for that, I'm just going to slide the tab underneath, and in the pre-installed nut, I'm just going to loosely thread in one bolt. That's going to help locate it and keep it lined up. And then you'll grab one more of those 1/2-inch button heads with a washer and install a serrated flange nut to the back side. Once you have it set up like that, go ahead and grab a 5/32 hex and tighten the bolt into the nut. And then you can come back and just remove that first bolt. That was just to locate the tab. And now when you're installing the slide itself, those are all going to be properly located. So once you get all 8 of those in place, it should look something like this. This side's obviously going to be your bottom. Now this panel is symmetric from side to side as far as the hole pattern goes. You just need to pay attention to what is the front and rear when installing it in the vehicle. So I'll roll this toolbox out of the way and you can get that in. So on the Bronco floor specifically, you'll be looking for these kind of raindrop cut holes out here close to the corner. That's going to determine essentially the back of this panel, or what's going to be closest to you here standing at the back of the vehicle. Then we can simply slide this in, kind of set it down, and begin lining up all the mounting fasteners here. So then you'll just need 10 of your 1/2-inch long 1/4-20 button heads with washers to secure this panel to the floor frame. Now just make sure when you're putting these in that you're not threading into those nut tabs at this time, and you're actually using these outer perimeter holes to hold this down. Then once you've started all that hold down hardware loosely by hand, you can go ahead and tighten this in place. So next you'll be assembling these slides to the side rail mounting brackets. For this, you're going to need to find the slides, of course. There's going to be a right and a left, and then these mounting brackets are actually symmetric, so it's not going to matter which one you start with there. Basically, you can go ahead and partially open up the slide here and begin lining it up inside of this bracket. You'll be looking to line up this 1/4-inch hole here with the second mounting hole from the end on the bracket itself, and then you can install the 3/8 long 1/4-20 button heads in these locations. Now inside of here we're going to be using a non-locking hex nut, so at these locations you'll want the medium strength thread locker that we supply in the bolt pack. Go ahead and put just a little bit of that onto each of these fasteners. Then with the slide located by this bolt here, you can begin installing the remaining hardware. Now to access the hardware here behind the actual sliding portion of this assembly, you will have to kind of manipulate this a little bit to line these windows up with the mounting holes. So you can go ahead and pick this tab up to slide this rear section independently, and then you can see here that's going to line up with the front hole. Then again, just one of those button heads and the hex nut here on the inside. Then with these 4 bolts started, grab a 5/32 hex and a 7/16 socket to tighten these up. Now since I don't think I mentioned it before, I will just point out that in order to determine and be sure that you have these in correctly, you want to make sure that down on the levers here is what releases the slide. And then you can go ahead and assemble the other side as well to have 2 kind of opposite assemblies. Now once you get both of those assembled, you're ready to install these to the floor in the vehicle. So now when you're putting these in, you're going to be bolting them down to those nut tabs that we installed earlier. So it's just a matter of lining these up. They should drop nicely over the hold down bolts thanks to the cutouts in the bottom of the rails here. And then find more of those 1/2 inch long button heads to secure these in place. Then again, just be sure to start all that hardware before you tighten it in place. Next, before this slide base can go in, you want to install this back panel. So take a look at the base. There's going to be an arrow cut out. That arrow is going to face toward the rear of the vehicle, meaning this needs to go on the opposite end. Once you've identified that, you'll simply slide it over here, line up both the top and bottom mounting holes, and install 3/8 button head hardware with those flange locking nuts here on the inside. Now you're also going to find your slide faceplate. And with all this stuff, that can just be set to the side for now, as we'll assemble that once this is bolted into those slides. Now the way this is set up, you can install it as I have it here, or if your fridge, for example, is too big to fit inside of the platform, you can flip it over, install it like this in the other set of holes, and then simply mount your fridge right to the top. Now with what we're doing today, I'm going to flip it back over, install it like this. So I'll start by just dropping it down in between the two slides here and leaving about half of it hanging out, just so that it kind of balances in there and isn't trying to fall out of the back of the vehicle. Once you have it set up like this, go ahead and pull the actual slide assembly out until it's about flush with the end of the drawer, and then you can begin lining up the mounting holes here. Now in this configuration, you're looking for this lower set of holes to line up with the hole in the slide, and then from the inside out, you'll be installing, again, a 3/8 long button head. In this configuration, you're also using those non-locking nuts again, so you want to make sure to use a little bit of that thread locker. So then you can just work your way down the side and install the 4 bolts on either side. Once you have these front 2 bolts in on each side, kind of loosely holding this base in place, you can then slide it out the rest of the way to get these back 2 bolts started. Now, just like before, you are going to have to kind of reach in here and release these locks so that you can slide the 2 portions of this slide bracket independently of one another to kind of access that hardware from the side in order to both get it installed and tighten it up. Now, once you get these front 2 bolts started on both sides, that'll kind of loosely support the drawer so that you can slide it the rest of the way out and work on getting this back hardware in. Just like before when you were installing the slide bracket into the slide frame, you will have to kind of manipulate this in and out so that you can access this hardware through the little side windows in there to both get them in and get them tight. Now after you get all that hardware tight, go ahead and slide this in and out, make sure these locks are functioning properly, and then we can begin assembling the face. Now is when you'll want to find the drawer face, and you can kind of either just loosely slide it into place like this and work around it in the front to get the press lever installed, or what I found is easiest is to just kind of temporarily install the top 2 bolts to just hold that in place while you're working out front here, and then we'll remove those and reinstall them when we're doing the final cover plate. So now you'll find the press lever. Obviously where it's got press cut into it, that kind of identifies it, but that's also going to be the side that faces up. And then you're going to get 2 of these little clamp brackets that come along with it. Those you will simply slide in behind the holes out here. There are a left and a right, so just make sure that the tab kind of faces out and mounts flush with the end of this one. And then you'll use 3/8 long 1/4 20 button heads here, and in this case install no washers, and that's just for a little bit of additional clearance. And then I'll start off by just installing this inside bolt into each of those so that we can still maneuver and manipulate them a little bit to get them around the latches down here. Then with both of these brackets loosely in place, you can kind of slide it in around the 2 red release levers here, and then install the last 2 3/8 long button heads. So then as you go to tighten this up, you're going to want to look at a couple things. You want to make sure this face is pushed back kind of tight to its mount so you get an accurate distance between the back of the lever here and the front of this face. And then you just want to make sure that's about 1/8 of an inch to a 3/16 gap between those 2 so that it has plenty of clearance as it moves up and down. And once you're happy with that,
Also just pay attention and make sure that your gaps are kind of even between the end of the press lever here and the red release tabs. Once you're happy with all that, go ahead and grab a set of pliers. I have wrapped electrical tape around the ends of these ones just to prevent any damage to the powder coat here on our lever. You could also just use a rag real quick between the two or whatever works for you. And then you just want to put a little bit of preload on these two tabs here so that they hold tight to the red release lever before tightening these up. Then before moving forward, do another quick check. Make sure that's going to operate the drawers properly, and make sure that it also doesn't slide in and out on these. If it does, you might want to loosen those back up and add just a little bit more preload here with your pliers, and then tighten them back up and check again. Now, if you had them in there, go ahead and remove those top two bolts that were holding this panel in place. Now you can find your faceplate. Go ahead and slide that over top, and then make sure you're using 1/2 inch long hardware here as you are going through 3 layers of material. And then it's just a matter of lining these up and getting that hardware installed. Now, if you did have a couple bolts holding this front panel in place, go ahead and remove those now and find your front cover plate. That'll simply slide in over top of the front panel as well as the lever here. And then you'll want to make sure you have a 1/2 inch long button head going into this location, since you are going through multiple layers of material. Now, if you had a couple bolts holding that front plate in place, go ahead and remove those now, and then find this front cover plate. You'll simply line these up, and you want to make sure you have 1/2 inch long hardware here as you are going through 3 layers of material. And again, flange locking nuts on the inside. Then just make sure you get all 4 of these mounting bolts in place before you tighten it up. So after you get this hardware tight, just go ahead and give this one last kind of functionality test, and then you're ready to install your fridge. So at this point, your installation is complete. Now, if you do have any questions about getting this assembled and installed in your specific vehicle, be sure to check out that vehicle's installation instructions as well as product page for more information. And then if you still have any questions, you can always reach out to us. You can send us an email at info@jcroffroad.com, info@victory4x4.com, or just give us a call at 269-353-1184.